live. How's it going, guys? It's El Platano Loco back with our final card review video. So I think we got like about 50, 60 cards that we still have to review. So I figured I might as well just do this while I'm live. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into this. So let's do this by class. We're going to start with Demon Hunter. Crimson Sigil Runner. So Crimson Sigil Runner is a 1 mana 2/1 minion for Demon Hunter. Another really strong minion. Really great stats. And if you're able to cast this as far as early game off the top or even late game off the top, you're not upset. It's pretty much just like a free cycle with a body attached to it. I'm still a little concerned on how effective Outcast is going to be, but in a very aggressive deck, you're just dumping all of your cards. So I think Sigil Runner is still going to find a place in literally every single Demon Hunter deck. They have so many good one-drops, though. It's going to be hard to tell which one of the three is going to take the top spot, but Crimson Sigil Runner is a very, very strong card. It is a 4 out of 5 star card. Next, we have the Ashtongue Battlelord. The Ashtongue Battlelord is a 4 mana 3/5 minion with Taunt and Lifesteal. So this card is actually pretty decent. You could think of Senjin Shieldmaster, right? Which is a 4 mana 3/5 but with Taunt only. So adding that Lifesteal could be effective. Not sure if you're gonna what deck exactly gonna be running this in. Maybe mid range, because if you're going full aggressive, full aggro, you're not gonna want taunts necessarily. You're just gonna keep zerging down your opponent. So Ashtongue Battlelord, Lifesteal is really great though. I will say that. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5. Our next card, the Nether Walker. Nether Walker is a 2 mana 2/2 with the effect that reads Battlecry, discover a demon. So Nether Walker is gonna see play in a big demon deck, is what I'm predicting it to be. Solid stats, 2 mana 2/2, discover a minion, discover a demon more specifically. There are a lot of bad demons though, but I wonder if they're going to include that bonus for Demon Hunter minions. So we'll see about that. Nether Walker, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Okay, so Immolation Aura. Immolation Aura is pretty much like a double Whirlwind, it looks like. 2 mana, you deal 1 damage to all minions twice. Pretty decent. Yeah, I mean, Whirlwind is a 1 mana deal 1 to all, and this is pretty much just like 2 Whirlwinds in 1 card. So I think that's actually pretty cool. Some removal for the big demon deck. So I think this is going to see some play. Pretty decent AoE, like a baby version of the 5 mana deal 4 to all minions. So Immolation Aura, I'm going to give a 3 out of 5. Let's see what else cards we have here, because they're kind of scattered. That was it for Demon Hunter. Let's go to the next class here. For Druid, Bog Beam. Bog Beam is a 3 mana spell for the Druid class that reads deal 3 damage to a minion and costs 0 if you have at least 7 mana crystals. So this is the second card that has a upside if you have at least 7 mana crystals. So maybe you're playing this in a big druid, but dealing 3 damage at that point of the game when you already have 7 mana crystals is not the best. I feel like you're probably playing Wrath, if anything, right? Wrath just serves a better purpose there. I don't know. Bog Beam. I think if this could target the face, it would be a little bit better, or if it had Lifesteal or something like that. But on its own, I think Bog Beam is a 2 out of 5. Our next card here, Overgrowth. So Overgrowth is pretty much like a souped up wild growth. It reads, is a 4 mana spell for Druid, and it reads, gain 2 empty mana crystals. So for 1 more mana, you cast this, and then you accelerate 2 mana crystals. That's actually pretty interesting. Turn 3 you play Wild Growth, turn 4 you play Overgrowth, and then you're already up 3 mana crystals. Maybe this is what they are pointing at to, as far as those spells that have advantages as 7 or more mana. They're probably expecting you to run like 2 copies of Wild Growth, 2 copies of Overgrowth, and then after that you play a bunch of big minions, and then you're able to kind of leverage those free spells to remove while still developing your own minions. Overgrowth, pretty interesting effect. And if you think about it, if you play 2 Wild Growths, right, it's pretty much 4 mana anyways. But now that it's 3 mana, for 1 more mana you get additional empty mana crystal. So I actually think Overgrowth is pretty decent. I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. That's it for Druid. We already covered the rest of the cards in our YouTube video. Let's go into Hunter. The Hellbore. The Hellbore is a 1 mana 2/1 Hunter minion that reads, Death Rattle, give a random beast in your hand +1/+1. So nothing too crazy here. You have a 1 mana 2/1, pretty standard. And Death Rattle, give a random beast in your hand +1/+1. Decent. Pretty good stat. Well statted 1 cost minion here. But nothing too crazy. If anything, I think if you're running the whole buff package, this will be a part of it. But I don't think this is essential to all Hunter lists. I'm going to give Hellbore a 3 out of 5. Pack Tactics. Now this card is really interesting, as we saw in the reveal stream, especially with Death Rattle minions. So this is a 2 mana secret for Hunter, and it reads, when a friendly minion is attacked, summon a 3/3 copy. This is really strong. Even if it's just like, let's say a Fairy Dragon, right? Fairy Dragon gets attacked, it dies, and then a 3/3 copy is summoned. So I think Pack Tactics is going to be very, very strong, especially since we still have the 2/3 cat, which I can't remember the name for it, but this is for sure going to be in almost every Hunter deck. Very strong secret. Very, very strong secret. And if you have cards with Poisonous or anything like that, Stealth, this just makes those minions bigger and more valuable for multiple trades. So Pack Tactics, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5 stars. Our next card here to kind of add on to that buff Hunter type of deck is Scrap Shot. Scrap Shot is a 4 mana Hunter spell that reads, deal 3 damage, give a random beast in your hand +3/+3. So this is similar to Flanking Shot, but without the minion body. I think that this is actually pretty interesting. It gives you that ability to choose when you want to buff, and you're also removing in the process, so kind of like giving into that mid to late game strategy. I think Scrap Shot is going to be interesting, and definitely a 2 of, just because it serves that dual purpose of giving +3/+3 and also dealing damage. You can also hit this to the face, so you can aim for the face with this as well. So I think that also gives it some kind of versatility as well, because you could buff your Tundra Rhino, you could buff a King Crush and give it more attack, and then that kind of gives into a lot of shenanigans. Scrap Shot, I really like it. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Let's move on to Hunter. The Stars Crier, or Star Scryer. Star Scryer is a 2 mana 3/1 mage minion with a Death Rattle that reads, draw a spell. So 2 mana 3/1, it's a Death Rattle, not a Battle Cry. You usually do want Battle Cries over Death Rattle because it is immediate, but this is targeted to specifically spells. If you have, let's say, specific spells in your deck or a few spells that you want to draw, this thing is going to be pretty decent. But outside of that, 2 mana 3/1, just easily dealt with. I don't know. Not going to run this in the spell only mage because it's a minion. You're not going to run this in Highlander You're probably not going to run this in control. Maybe there's some kind of tempo casino mage out there that might make some use out of this, but I don't see it. I'm going to give Star Scryer a 2 out of 5 stars. Netherwind Portal. Alright, this is an interesting one. So it's a new secret for mage, and it's a 3 mana secret here. After your opponent casts a spell, summon a random 4-cost minion. That is pretty decent. I'm just thinking about like all of the classes that use spells to either leverage or remove minions from the board. I think that Netherwind Portal is just going to be a really, really fantastic secret, and kind of like a fake out another secret that your opponent has to worry about. And let's say they use a cheap spell or removal spell on something else, thinking that it is a counter spell, and then they get faked out, and it's a 4 mana minion that gets summoned out of this. And there are some minions for 4 mana that are very powerful. So I think that Netherwind Portal is going to be very strong, especially with the addition of all the new cards from the expansion as well. Probably overall increasing the power level of that 4-cost region. So Nether Portal, I think, is a very strong spell, and it's so easy to trigger because you need to play spells in most decks just to advance your game plan, whether you're aggressive, mid-range, or control. So I'm going to give Netherwind Portal a 4 out of 5 stars. Deep Freeze. Alright, so Deep Freeze is a 8 mana spell that reads freeze an enemy and summon 2/3/6 water elementals. So Deep Freeze is a pretty decent spell, actually. I saw it being played for 7 mana because it was reduced by the Flow card. I forgot what it's called. Something Flow. But this is really strong. 2/3/6 water elementals, as we've seen in the days past, right? With Lich King or Frost Queen Jaina, when she was one of the Death Knights, right? The ping would summon a 3/6 after a minion was killed, right? So I feel like water elementals are pretty bulky, and for what they do, they're very pesky and hard to remove. So I think that they're going to be really problematic as far as for the enemy to deal with. And I think summoning 2 at once, usually whenever you bundle minions, is a very powerful effect. And this gives you a freeze as well. So it's like pretty much an initial stall as well as built-in minions that also kind of contribute to that stall tactic as well. So in an all spell-based mage, you're definitely going to run this as a 2 of. I'm going to give Deep Freeze a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So this is what I was talking about. Incanter's Flow. Incanter's Flow is a 2 mana mage spell that reads reduce the cost of spells in your deck by 1. So if you run 2 of these in your pure mage spell deck, or whatever, all mage spell deck, this is going to be definitely something that you want to include. The fact that you can run 2 of these and reduce the cost of all your spells by up to 2 is pretty insane. The last spell that we just reviewed, if you're able to get that off for 6 mana, that's already incredible value. 1 elemental is already 4 mana, and you have 2. That's already 8 worth of mana plus a freeze effect, which is, let's say, 1 mana. So if you get that 9 mana combination for 6, that's already very powerful. Not to mention that this, as well as Sorcerer's Apprentice, can probably be something that's pretty bonkers. So maybe you just run this in a Cyclone Mage. 2 copies of this, and just kind of go to town, right? You got a bunch of free spells, 1 mana spells, or free 2 mana spells if you cast 2 of these. So I think Incanter's Flow has a lot of versatility, and you could pretty much run it in any mage deck. I'm going to give Incanter's Flow a 4 out of 5 stars. So our next card here is Fonts of Power. And it has a kind of like a funny little description here. It's Comic Sans. Comic Sans. So it's a 1 mana spell for mage that reads discover a mage minion. If your deck has no minions, keep all 3. This reminds me of the druid version of this spell that was pretty much discover a minion. If you have no minions in your hand, keep all 3. And this is pretty much the same thing, but cheaper. Now, mage minions on average are kind of like lackluster. You're looking for more specific ones like Antonidas, Caligos, Reno, right? So I feel like the power level of Fauna Power is going to be a little less than that of the Druid version, but still a necessary piece in that all spell mage. So 1 mana for 3 minions, that is a lot of value. And I think if you're running a all spell mage, you're definitely going to run this. Even in a Highlander list, maybe you do run out of steam eventually, and you just use this as kind of like a final, your final crack, right? So I think that Font of Power is pretty strong and it's definitely going to see play, especially in the spell-based mage. So I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Paladin, we have one card to review still. The Hand of Adal. Hand of Adal is a 2 mana Paladin spell with effect that reads, give a minion +2/+2 and draw a card. So really powerful actually. +2/+2 and draw a card as well is very, very strong. You run this in Temple Paladin. You run this in a Control Paladin with the new legendary that was just released as well. And you could also get this back, and it's a cycle, so you're getting a cycle and a buff in one, which is really strong, especially in aggressive decks. And it's, you think about it like a half Blessing of Kings, but with upside. So I think Hand of Adal is going to be a very strong card. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 stars. Priest got actually a decent amount of cards. They got the most in this, in the reveal stream. Imprisoned Homunculus. When I saw this card, 1 mana, 2/5. So on turn 3, it ends up awaking with 2/5 of stats, right? This card's really strong, very anti-aggro, 2/5 stat line, not to be taken lightly, and a solid foundation for any buffs. So any buff cards for priest that you have in mind, whether it's the one that adds attack as well as health and lifesteal, or just the 3 mana minion that does give 2/2 at the end of the turn, I think that Homunculus is going to be a very core part of any type of tempo-based priest deck. I really like this card, and I was trying to figure out whether this dormant effect is going to be kind of like good enough, right, to carry priest on his coattails, but we'll see. Definitely we'll see. I'm going to try this out for sure, but Imprisoned Homunculus looks promising. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Dragon Maul Sentinel. So when I saw this card initially, I thought it did have taunt as well, but it's just +1 attack and lifesteal. So Dragon Maul Sentinel, still a very strong card, +1 attack and lifesteal, which makes it a 2/4 with lifesteal, is still pretty strong and is really good at removing early game minions while keeping you sustained enough to get you into those late game turns. Very strong. Dragon Ball Sentinel, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5 stars. Reliquary of Souls. Reliquary of Souls is the prime minion for Priest. I was wondering when they were going to release this, so I guess the reveal stream was the perfect place for that. The Reliquary of Souls is a 1 mana 1/3 minion with lifesteal with Death Rattle that reads, shuffle Reliquary Prime into your deck. And Reliquary Prime is actually this guy here, and that is a 7 mana 6/8 minion with taunt and lifesteal that reads, only you can target this with spells and hero powers. So the card that was similar to this, there was like a unicorn minion that was a 4 mana 3/3 from, I think it's still in standard at the moment before rotation, but that effect is very powerful. You can buff the minion, you can target and heal Reliquary Prime, but your opponent can't use any type of spell or hero power to target. That's very powerful and very defensive. So just adding on to kind of like that control side of Priest, giving them another tool to build a control style of deck, I think is very important. And I think Reliquary of Souls is going to be pretty decent. I'm gonna give Reliquary of Souls a 4 out of 5 stars. Alright, so this card as well is also very interesting and very hard to, let's say, very hard to rate it because it's a mass hysteria, but in some situations it has upside. As we know, mass hysteria is already a very strong removal for a priest, and soul mirror here I think is gonna take the place of that. But it's also a legendary, so you only can run one of. Um, so without further ado, let's get into that. So it's a 7 mana spell for priest that reads summon copies of enemy minions if they attack their copies. So on the condition that it matches up as far as like attack to health, you summon a copy of their minion on your side of the board and then they fight it out. If it matches up, they kill each other off, right? But if there's a high health minion with less attack, you summon a copy of that, they clash, and they'll still have some stats left over. So this is also summoning or mirroring your opponent's board while also removing bigger minions. I think that this card is very interesting, very, very interesting, and the more I think about it, the more I like it. Because worst case scenario, you just remove everything. Best case scenario, you remove some things and you also develop some minions as well. So I think Soul Mirror is definitely going to see play in more control variants of Priest. And I'm very interested to see how the animation looks and how it plays out. So I'm going to give Soul Mirror a 4 out of 5 stars. Next card here we have is Skeletal Dragon. Skeletal Dragon is a 7 mana 4/9 dragon with taunt that reads at the end of your turn, add a dragon to your hand. So the closest card to this is the Emerald Dragon, I think it's called, or Emerald Drake for Druid, which is the 6 mana 4/8. But this one has +1 health for 1 more mana and then an end of turn effect instead of the instant discover, which I think the discover is a little better. And as far as the stat line is 4/8 is much better for 6. I don't know if paying the additional 1 for +1 and end of turn effect is significant enough to push this over. But Skeletal Dragon seems like a decent card, value generator. It's another dragon to add to Priest. So for that, the dragon tag and then decent stats and the end of turn, which is a repeated effect, I'm gonna give Skeletal Dragon a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So Psych Split is pretty much like a faceless manipulator plus a buff, a small buff. So Psych Split is a 5 mana spell for Priest that reads give a minion +1/+2 and summon a copy of it. I think that this can see play for sure, but I think it's going to be occasional play. Unless there's some very key minions, maybe you want to copy minions that have end of turn effects or end of turn buffs. I think that's when Psych Split is really going to shine, as well as maybe you want to copy the prime version of the minion because you can still target that as well as giving it more health, so it's harder to remove. But Psych Split is going to be very situational, and you're only going to play it in some decks, not all decks. And for that reason, I'm going to give Psych Split a 2 out of 5 stars. Alright, our next spell here is Apotheosis. Is a 3 mana priest spell that reads give a minion +2/+3 and lifesteal. This is actually really strong. For 3 mana to give a minion +2/+3 and lifesteal, which is very, very sustaining to any minion. Especially you could target this on the 2/5 that we were talking about earlier, making it a 4/8 minion with lifesteal. That's very strong. I think Apotheosis is going to work really well with the Dormant 1 mana Homunculus, as well as just like any early drop or any big minion, actually, just giving them lifesteal on any bigger minion. The prime minions, lifesteal Well, they already that one already has lifesteal, but any big dragons giving them lifesteal is going to be very, very strong. Just like a sustain, as well as just buffing up the stats is already pretty good. A 2+2+3. I just think of what was it? The Velen spell from before that used to give +2/+4 and spell damage. I think that lifesteal is going to play a similar role in just sustaining you against more aggressive decks. So Apotheosis, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5 stars. Renew is a 1 mana pre-spell with the effect that reads restore 3 health and discover a spell. I think that this card is very good. You could chain into other healing spells. So for control list, for mid-range list, tempo list, I think that Renew is going to play a very interesting role as that flex spell that can do 2 things at once. It is very cheap, and the value that it can generate is going to be really interesting to see how this one plays out. So Renew, I'm going to give a 3 out of 5 stars. I believe that is it for the priest minions. Let's jump into Rogue. Rogue, we reviewed the 4 on the bottom: Ambush, Stunner, Hanar, and Akama. And we also reviewed Greyheart Sage, but actually Greyheart Sage is going to be very interesting with the other cards, because I was looking to see if they would add any more stealth minions, and Spy Mistress is a very, very powerful stealth minion, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. So let's actually take another look at Greyheart Sage here. So Greyheart Sage is a 3 mana 3/3 minion for Rogue that reads Battlecry. If you control a stealth minion, draw 2 cards. Now, when I rated this minion, which I initially gave it a 3, I didn't think that Rogue was going to get any more stealth minions outside of the Prime. So I think that this card with the 1-drop is going to be really strong, because you could run 2 ofs, and I don't know why you wouldn't run the Spy Mistress. Is a stronger version of the Worgen Infiltrator. It's a 3/1 with stealth that can be targeted. This thing is at least trading into any 2-drop or smacking your opponent in the face for 3. So I think that that's going to be this package right here. You're definitely going to run 2 ofs each, as well as these two guys here. I just think that the whole package, the whole secret package, is very strong. The stealth package is very strong, and then the Prime minion is also very strong. I really like what the direction that they're going with Rogue. They gave it enough strong cards to actually go toe to toe with most decks still, even after Leroy rotates. So Greyheart Sage, now I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5, at least 4 out of 5, because more likely than not, you're going to have at least one of these, Spy Mistress, or you'll probably have a Kama in the early game. So I think that alone warrants giving this a 4 out of 5. Cursed Vagrant, which is a 7 mana 7/5 minion with Death Rattle, summon a 7/5 Shadow with Stealth. So, like they were mentioning in the live stream, Ravenholt Assassin is a neutral 7/5 minion with Stealth. This has a 7/5 body with a Death Rattle, summon a Ravenholt Assassin. That's freaking bonkers. You're also going to run 2 of these in your deck as well. I think that the secret Rogue is going to have all of these cards, 2 of, when it does apply. And it's just going to be super aggressive, very cutthroat. Throw in Lackey package, as well as some additional burst and eviscerate, saps. It's going to be very strong. And I'm probably going to try this out for sure. So Cursed Vagrant, I think this effect is very powerful. The upfront part is a little heavy on cost, but the payoff with the Shadow, you can literally leave the Shadow stealth for a big trade or just to go face. I think that Cursed Vagrant is a very strong card. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 stars. Dirty Tricks. After your opponent casts a spell, draw 2 cards. This is a 5-star card. I just think about with dirty tricks, it's gonna be so easy to trigger this because you think about the coin, you think about any early game spells, anything that your opponent has to do for 50, if not more percent of their game plan is gonna involve using spells. So dirty tricks is gonna be active more likely than not, and you know that payoff is really huge. Drawing two cards is very strong. That's 2 mana, no, 2 to 3 mana on its own, and then having this as a secret to work off of and synergize with Blackjack Stunner, as well as Shadow Jeweler, I think is very, very strong. I really, really like where they're going with Rogue. So I'm going to give Dirty Tricks a 5 out of 5 stars. Another 5-star card. Bamboozle. Bamboozle is a 2 mana secret, another secret. And I love the artwork. It's hilarious. You got a Murloc there, and behind that you're hiding a ogre. It's hilarious. There's a 2 mana secret that reads, when one of your minions is attacked, transform it into a random one that costs 3 more. So let's talk about some of these high priority targets, right? High priority targets, you got Akama, right? Especially Shadow Jeweler, because this is a passive effect. Shadow Jeweler Hanar, Akama, Mistress, because if you leave this up, this thing is going to keep on punching you in the face for 3 damage. Curse Vagrant is also another top heavy minion, another prime example of a card that can be protected by Bamboozle. Great Heart Sage. Granted, you probably don't want your Vagrant getting bamboozled, right? Because you do want that 7/5 shadow, so maybe you could play it in a way that you bamboozle the second half, if anything. Like you can attack with the shadow and then bamboozle, they attack that, turns into a 10 drop. That's insane. This card is super strong. Super strong. I just think about the hunter. There was a hunter secret that is summoned a 3-drop to protect a minion, or I think it was a minion, or when your opponent attacked face. This is in that same vein, and you're gonna run this as a 2-of in every secret rogue deck. I'm gonna give Bamboozle a 5 out of 5 stars. Ashton Slayer here is a 2-mana 3/2 minion that reads Battlecry, give a stealth minion +3 attack and immune this turn. That is bananas. This income in conjunction with Spy Mistress. Think about it. Play this on turn 1, turn 2, and you already played so you have a 6/1 with immune. Oh, sorry. You have a 6/1 with a immune, and then just punch your opponent in the face for 6, or you could trade into literally any minion while the mistress still survives. So I think Slayer has multiple implications here. With Akama, it works really well. You could just kind of like you play this on the permanently stealth prime version, and you could trade into something. It's permanently stealth, so these things always have a target when Akama is on the board, unless they're able to twisting the other way or play a massive AoE that's able to deal 5 or more damage. I think Ash Tongue Slayer is gonna be a force to be reckoned with, and it's gonna bring about a super hyper aggressive rogue deck that's gonna race Demon Hunter to see who could destroy the other one first, right? So Ash Tongue Slayer is a very strong card. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Spy Mistress. Oh, I also didn't mention that it's already a 2-mana 3/2, so premium stats and large upside for stealth minions. So Spy Mistress, the best buddy to Slayer here, is a 1-mana 3/1 with stealth. Hyper aggressive stats on a 1-drop, and it does have stealth, so cannot be targeted. No way to deal with this unless you are able to somehow play like missiles, or maybe like the 2-drop, the Sandstorm Elemental. This thing is strong, very aggressive. So you're going to run this as a 2 of in pretty much any aggressive or secret oriented deck with that that stealth hybrid built in. So I think that Spy Mistress is going to be very, very strong, very, very aggressive. Just very strong card. I don't know what else to say. Simple, yes, very powerful. I'm going to give Spy Mistress a 4 out of 5 stars. And that wraps it up for Rogue. Our last 4 cards. Last 4 cards for Shaman, because we already did everyone else. Vivid Spores, we saw it in the live stream as well. It gives your minions Death Rattle. Resummon this minion. So if you have a bunch of Death Rattle Shaman minions, or if you have a bunch of tokens or big minions, this pretty much lets you double dip and trade those away without having to sacrifice those minions off, because you pretty much resummon everything. I think that this card is going to be very interesting in Shaman overall. And it allows you to get 2 copies of the prime minions in the prime minion in certain situations, right? Because you just Vivid Spores and then bring it back. But this is also an interesting card as well for token decks. Maybe you just play Spores as another Soul of the Murloc extension, giving it a second set of resummon these minions so you could trade off and leverage your tokens while still keeping them in play. So I think Vivid Spores is an interesting card. Not as cheap of Soul of the Murlocs, but still very strong. And I think it's going to see play in a good amount of decks. I'm going to give Vivid Spores a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So Totemic Reflection. We didn't get to see this one in play, but pretty simple in what it does. Totemic Reflection is a 3-mana spell for a Shaman that reads, give a minion +2/+2, and if it's a totem, summon a copy of it. So turn 2, you token, or you hero power, sorry. So you hero power, and usually on turn 3, you're following it up with another totem, or you're developing another minion. But Totemic Reflection gives you the opportunity to buff that totem and also summon a copy of it. So let's say you roll into a spell totem. You can make it a 2/4 and give you another spell totem on the side, which is pretty strong. Now, most of the time, people usually ignore totems in the beginning of the game because they're not very threatening. But I think Totemic Reflection, as well as some of the Totemic Might or totem-based synergy cards, might make Totemic Reflection somewhat playable. Now, is it like something that can become an archetype on its own? As of now, no. But I think that with a few more pieces, maybe in the following expansions, we could see Totem Shaman become a thing. I'm gonna give Totemic Reflection a 2 out of 5. Serpentine Portal. So Serpentine Portal is a Firelands portal for Shaman. That's 3 mana, and you deal 3 damage and summon a 3-cost minion with Overload 1. So Serpent Shrine Portal seems pretty decent for what it does. You can remove something or just deal damage to your opponent while also summoning a minion. We think about cards like Maelstrom Portal. Maelstrom Portal was busted, super strong, dealt AoE damage, but the difference between that and this is single target removal or single target damage. So I think Serpent Shrine Portal is going to be interesting to play around with. You don't really mind playing the 1 mana for Overload in the next turn. So in that case, I feel like it's a fair card. It's not busted in any way, but it can scale up with spell damage as well, so that's very interesting. I'm gonna give Serpent Shrine Portal a 3 out of 5. Marsh Spawn. Marsh Spawn is a 3 mana 3/4 elemental that reads Battlecry. If you cast a spell last turn, discover a spell. So a fairly standard minion, 3 mana 3/4, very defensive, but it also has the upside of chaining into spells. So if you did play a spell the previous turn, you get to discover another one. So I think that's actually really cool, and another elemental to add to Shaman as well. Now, whether this will see play in more competitive decks, not really. This is more so an arena card, or maybe something that you'll run in a control list, just to kind of give you that early body to also chain your spells. But a pretty decent card. It generates value. Marsh Spawn, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. That is it for the Shaman cards. So for the Warlock class, we actually got some very interesting cards. I wasn't too hopeful about Dark Portal, Council, or Scrap Imp, but we did get some interesting cards in the Dark Glare here, Hand of Gul'dan, Nightshade Matron, and the Ebenlock or Ebenlock. So let's start off here with Unstable Fellbolt. Unstable Fellbolt is a 1 mana Warlock spell that reads, deal 3 damage to an enemy minion and a random friendly one. I wonder if you don't have any minions on board, if you can still cast this. I'm pretty sure you can. So in that case, if you don't have any minions on board, you could use this as removal. But I don't think this card's very good. Yeah. I don't think this is very good. Random friendly one, I mean, you can cast this on a minion on your opponent's side that probably has higher health, and then if you have a bunch of like 1 health minions, maybe it casts it on a weaker one that you don't care if it dies. But more than likely, I don't think you're gonna, unless you can play this as a single target removal in a control deck, and that requirement doesn't have to be met. This card is like meh. It's a 2 out of 5. I'm gonna give Unstable Fellbolt a 2 out of 5. Enhanced Dreadlord. I don't think I saw this yet until a couple minutes ago, but this is a 8 mana 5/7 minion with taunt that reads, Death Rattle, summon a 5/5 Dreadlord with taunt. Alright, oh sorry, Dreadlord with Lifesteal. Let's see the Dreadlord here, the image. So it's just a 5/5 with Lifesteal. That's still pretty strong, but for 8 mana, 5/7 with taunt. And then you have the Dreadlord. Taunt summon. So the second half has Lifesteal, the first half does not. I don't know, I don't think this is that good. Very strong in Arena. As far as standard, I feel like that power ceiling is very high. So I'm going to give Dreadlord a 2 out of 5. Hand of Gul'dan. Alright, so this card is pretty freaking nuts, because there's the 2 mana 2/1 that discards the highest cost card from your hand. So if this gets discarded, you draw 3 cards. If you play it, you draw 3 cards, but you most likely want to discard this. And in that game, we saw that there was like 4 Hand of Gul'dans. The whole deck was cycled through. So I think with enough kind of like tinkering and deck building efficiency there can be in a deck, a discard Warlock deck that's very strong. Hand of Gul'dan is definitely going to be a part of that. I think this card's insane. The fact that this could be a free, let's say a 2 mana draw 3. I think that this thing is insane. I'm going to give Hand of Gul'dan a 5 out of 5 stars, because the potential on this thing is nuts. You discard it off of Soulfire, you'll deal 4 damage, and then you draw 3 cards. You discard it with the 2/1, get 2 copies of it back, increasing your chances to discard it and draw more. This thing is nuts. Hand of Gul'dan, 5 stars. Dark Glare, another super bananas card. This thing is also 5 stars. Dark Glare is a 3 mana 3/4. After your hero takes damage, refresh 2 mana crystals. And note, this is a passive effect. You can use this up to 3-4 times a turn, giving you what? You could get up to 10 mana crystals back. This thing is bananas. I know that someone is going to make a deck in which you're able to take full advantage of Dark Glare and just maybe OTK your opponent in one turn. Dark Glare is going to be a part of a lot of OTK combo decks, as well as just aggressive decks that do damage to self. And just when you tap, you pretty much tap for free when this is on the board. Dark Glare is insane, and if you have 2 copies of these on the board, which your opponent is going to be looking to kill this thing as soon as it hits the board, you just get a free tap, and you also get 2 mana back if you have 2 of them on the field. So this thing is crazy. It's 3 mana, 3/4. Stats are solid with super high upside, and it makes cards like Flame Imp even more strong than it already is. It makes options like tapping more strong than it already is. This thing is nuts. 5 out of 5 stars. So here we have a 4 mana minion for Warlock, the Nightshade Matron. It is a 4 mana 5/5 minion with Rush that reads discard your highest cost card. So this is another card that works with Hand of Gul'dan, where you would just play this, discard that. The strategy is you're going to have Hand of Gul'dan be the highest cost card in the deck. Everything under that would be 5 or less cost, so that if you have those in hand, you could discard it with this, or the 2/1 that I really have to learn the name of. But I think that Nightshade Matron is a very strong card. It has a Rush as well on a 5/5 minion for 4 mana, so it's very low cost, very high impact. Another 4-star. Oh wait, actually, I'm gonna give this a 4-star. No, I'll give this a 4-star. Yeah, it's very strong, very strong. All right, here's another 5-star card, the Canrithad Ebonlock. It is a 2 mana 3/2, the prime minion for Warlock here. Your demons cost 1 less. Death Battle shuffle Canrithad Prime into your deck. And the prime version is a 8 mana 7/6 that reads Battlecry summon 3 friendly minions that died this game. So this actually synergizes very well with our friend here, the Nightshade Matron, because it reduces the cost by 3. This is also another demon in the pool, so you're getting an immediate effect on the prime version here. Resummoning that, having a minion with Rush to kind of trade off, I think is very powerful. So Canrithad Ebonlock, I'm going to give a 5 out of 5 stars, also because just like the fact that it reduces the cost of everything in every demon in your deck as well, it just makes all the demons significantly stronger as well. 5 out of 5 stars. I really like this version of the prime minion. I'm glad that Warlock got a very strong prime minion because they need all the freaking help they can get. Caladan the Breaker. It is a 6 mana 3/3. The Battlecry reads destroy a minion. If drawn this turn, instead destroy all minions except this one. So plot twist is going to be very strong with this card. If you're able to play this on the turn where it's drawn, you pretty much twisting nether the board besides Caladan. So that's very powerful. Also when you're kind of top decking in top deck mode, this thing is very strong. Maybe you run this in that same Warlock deck with Hand of Gul'dan. Maybe just play this as well. We'll see how that deck kind of turns out, but Caladan the Breaker is going to be a very strong removal tool for Control Warlock. So we're going to see if a Control Warlock or a very hand-oriented Warlock really takes off. But Caladan the Breaker, very interesting effect. Worst case scenario, you just destroy a big minion. But if not, with the upside of potentially removing the whole board, I'm going to give Caladan the Breaker a 4 out of 5 stars. Hoo-wee! Alright. Started to run a little bit out of juice, but we'll get there. I'm probably just going to do this and then just quickly go through the neutral cards because most of the neutral cards are okay. There's probably like 1 or 2 that really caught my eye. But let's get into the warrior cards here. So here we have Imprisoned Ganarg. It's a 1 mana 2/2 minion for warrior that reads dormant for 2 turns. When this awakens, equip a fiery war axe. I'm just gonna call it Fiery War Axe because it's pretty much a Fiery War Axe. So Imprisoned Gunnar is gonna be a very interesting minion. Turn 1, you just invest that minion on that weapon on turn 3. That's going to be immediate. So as far as like the weapon it's not asleep like the minions are. It's effective immediately. So I think that that's going to be very important for more aggressive decks. Imprisoned Gunnar, very interesting card. Now I'm still skeptic about the whole dormant effect on certain minions, so we'll see how it shakes out. But this card is okay. I'm gonna give Imprisoned Gunnar a 3 out of 5 stars. Blade Storm. So here we have a very interesting removal spell for Warrior because they're the kings of removal. Blade Storm is a 3-mana spell for Warrior that reads deal 1 damage to all minions, repeat until 1 dies. So this reminds me of the 3-mana card from GVG, which was also similar. It had like I think it was called like Buzzsaw or something like that, and it was pretty much a deal 1 damage to all minions, and then when the first one to die, then it stops. So I think that Blade Storm is also very interesting. We saw kind of like minimal implications in the live stream. I don't think he really got to play it, right? I think Crip got to play it one time, but this is pretty much a card for control decks. Another good removal for control decks, and is very cheap at 3 mana. So you could actually kind of work this in a way that if your opponent has a bunch of 8/8s on board, is going to keep on going until all the 8/8s are gone. And if you have, like, let's say a couple of 5/5s on the board and then one 6/6, it'll kill off all the 5/5s, and then you'll have a 6/1 left over. So I think that this card is just going to be really strong as a 2-of in any control warrior deck, and it's going to see a lot of play. Blade Storm, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. This is actually one of the minions for warrior. Here we have the Blood Boil Brute that also takes advantage of damaged minions. So it reads Rush, costs 1 less for each damaged minion, and is a 7-mana 6/8, which is already really strong for 7 mana. But with a board full of damaged minions, you could drop this for 2 mana, 3 mana, 1 mana, and that's where it starts to get really insane. It's a very high health Rush, which is immediate impact. I think that Blood Boil Brute is going to replace probably Acolyte of Pain in Galakron Warrior. You're going to want to run this in Galakron Warrior for sure, especially when you buff this up +4/+4. This thing is going to get crazy real quick. So I'm just thinking about the potential upside in Galakron decks where you're damaging your minions very often with Inner Rage, or with the 1/3 Pirate as well. I think that Blood Boil Brute is going to be very strong, especially in those types of decks. And I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 stars. Here we have a Mac for Warrior, which I didn't think we were going to get this soon. This Scrap Golem here. It is a 5-mana 4/5 taunt with Death Rattle. Gain armor equal to this minion's attack. So I believe that they're trying to push more so Taunt Warrior, where you're buffing up all the taunt minions in your hand with the 1-mana spell, and as well as I forgot how to say the word. The Armadillo guy. Armadillo, the 4/7 that gives everything in your hand +2/+2 at the end of the turn. So I think Scrap Golem is going to be interesting in that kind of deck, but outside of that, it's okay. A 5-mana 4/5 or taunt, Death Rattle, gain 4 armor is okay. Nothing too crazy. I'm gonna give Scrap Golem a 3 out of 5 stars. So next here we have the Corsair Cache, which is a 2-mana spell for a warrior that reads draw a weapon, give it +1/+1. Now this card is very interesting for aggressive decks because let's say you draw a Arcanite Reaper, that thing starts off as a 5/2, but now it's a 6/3. Now granted, you do have to put in that initial investment of 2 mana, but I think that This is also going to be very interesting for the Bulwark of Azzinoth as well, making this a 2/5, just adding to the amount of damage that you can take as a warrior and the durability as well, while increasing the attack as well. So I think that Corsair Cash is going to be very interesting. It's going to see some play in aggressive decks, not as much in control decks, but we'll see. I'm going to give Corsair Cash a 3 out of 5 as well. Bone Chewer Raider. Bone Chewer Raider is a 3 mana 3/3 minion that reads Battlecry. If there is a damaged minion, gain +1/+1/+1 and rush. So this is similar to the 3 mana 4/4 for Paladin, that if you have a mech on the field, gain +1/+1 rush as well. But the condition of there being a damaged minion in general, it doesn't have to be your damaged minion. It could be an opponent's damaged minion, which you can pretty much just tap into something, or you could tap into something, or let's say if you do a whirlwind or anything like that. This is going to be very easy and pretty straightforward as far as activation. So I think that Bone Chewer Raider is going to be very strong. As what we've seen so far, 4/4 with rush is very strong. It could take out an initial minion and also leave a threat on the board that just constantly chips away. So Bone Chewer Raider, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5 stars. Sorted Board. Deal 2 damage, gain 2 armor. Not much to say about this card. It's okay. Nothing too crazy. Deal 2 damage, gain 2 armor. Nothing spectacular. Nothing game changing. Might see play in Arena. 2-star card. That wraps up all of the class cards. Now we're going to go to the neutral cards. Rustworn Cultist. This was one of the cards that I feel like was kind of glazed over, but very, very strong. Especially in Token Druid. Token Druid and Token Shaman are going to make use out of this card. I can go as far as saying that this is probably a 4-star or even 5-star card, because it's a 4 mana 3/3, so it has base stats are pretty decent. You're like +1/+1 off, but if you have tokens on the board already, if you have totems on the board or any minions, this is giving them a death rattle that leaves a sticky minion behind. And the fact that this is on a minion already and it's not a spell, so you're getting board presence while also fortifying your minions that are already on board, this card is going to be very, very strong, especially with decks that take advantage of buffing small minions like Paladin, like Warlock, and Shaman. So I think that Rustworn Cultist is going to be very strong and very annoying as well. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. The Ethereal Aug Merchant. Ethereal Aug Merchant is a 1 mana 2/1 minion. This card actually is okay. I mean, arena card, not so much. Standard card, not strong enough. I'm going to give Ethereal Aug Merchant a 1 out of 5. Infectious Sporling, a 1 mana 1/2. So this card is interesting. I don't think it's ever gonna get to attack something, but the effect is very strong. You could turn an 8/8 or a 10/10 or a 12/12 into a 1/2. If this thing had stealth, it would be broken. But as a 1 mana 1/2, I think this is pretty decent. Now, if you could probably buff this minion, and if it is a copy of whatever this is, and you can't buff it to make it stronger and give your opponent the weaker version of it, I don't think it's very good. But if it ignores any buffs and just turns it into a 1/2, this might be pretty decent, especially in Arena. I think that this could actually see some play. Maybe in like a zoo deck, you just play this to prevent your opponent from playing a big minion and having to remove this. So this might be really annoying. I would watch out for this card. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5, but I think this has potential. Alright, our next minion here is a 1 mana 2/1 minion, Rocket Aug Merchant. Rocket Aug Merchant is a 1 mana minion that reads Battlecry, deal 1 damage to a minion and give it rush. Not so good. Eh, I understand where they're going with this deal 1 damage. A lot of these cards are kind of catering more so towards the rest of the vanilla cards in this set, where they take advantage of being damaged. I think that one of them that's very strong, we're going to come up on it very soon, but it's not this one necessarily. But Rocket Arc Merchant, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5 stars. Soulbound Ashtongue. So this actually is going to be one of the supporting casts to Warlock, self-damaging Warlock. It is a 1/4 minion for 1 mana that reads, whenever this minion takes damage, also deal that amount to your hero. So this thing reminds me of the 2 mana 4/3, I forgot what it was called. I think it was called Fellhound or something like that, where whatever damage that minion took, your hero would also take, and it was a 4/3 for 2. So this is a 1 mana 1/4. You definitely don't want this thing getting attacked by anything huge, because that's gonna wreck you. But I think that this is gonna just synergize so well with gaining mana crystals off of the 3/4, and also just with the 4 mana 3/5 vulture. This is gonna be really strong early game. I think that Ashtongue is gonna be pretty decent. I'm gonna give this card a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Rustworn Initiate. So Rustworn Initiate is a 2 mana 2/2 with a death rattle that reads, summon a 1/1 imp caster with spell damage +1. I think this is actually pretty decent, especially in arena. Pretty okay minion overall. Leaving behind that 1/1 minion that also has spell damage is also going to be really cool for rogue, for mage. They really take advantage of spell damage in general, and I think just having overall 3/3, you can think about this as a 3/3 with spell damage +1, which is really strong. So I think that Rustworn Initiate is pretty strong for a 2/2, and I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Blistering Rot. Blistering Rot is a 3 mana 1/2 at the end of that reads, at the end of your turn, summon a rot with stats equal to this minion. For the effect, I don't think that this card is going to see play, just because it's too expensive for a 1/2 on the base. You have to invest a lot. You have to invest a lot into this, at least 5 to 7 mana to even see anything remotely close. This card is just not gonna make it. Let me see what the Living Rot looks like. It's probably the same, right? Oh, that's pretty cute. I'm gonna give Blistering Rot a 2 out of 5 stars. Frozen Shadow Weaver. This card's also really interesting. So it's a 3 mana 4/3 with the effect that reads, Battlecry freeze an enemy. So the comparable card is the Frozen Elemental, which I think is the 5 mana 5/5 that freezes, or is it 6 mana 5/5 that freezes? So this is actually on par with that, but it's a 3 mana for a 4/3, freezes an enemy. I think this is pretty decent. Nothing spectacular, but pretty decent. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, Terrorguard Escapee is a 3/7 3 mana minion that reads, Battlecry summon 3 1/1 Huntresses for your opponent. So any of these cards are very low cost, but summon minions for your opponent usually never make it. The Huntresses are pretty much just 1/1s, right? Not going to see play. I'm going to give this a 1 out of 5 stars. Burrowing Scorpion is a 4 mana 5/2 minion that reads, Battlecry deal 2 damage. If that kills the target, gain stealth. I think that this is also going to be another card that can be synergized with the rogue hybrid stealth secret hybrid deck. It deals 2 damage off the bat, and it also has very high attack, and if it kills something, it also gains stealth. I think that this card is going to be very strong. If this chips you 1 time is already really good, but the fact that it already does something off the bat and it has an upside as well as high attack on a 4 mana minion, which is not too much of an investment for the diverse effects that you're getting here, I think that Burrowing Scorpion shows some promise, and I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 stars. Here we have the Disguised Wanderer. Disguised Wanderer is a 4 mana 3/3 that with a death rattle that reads, summon a 9/1 Inquisitor. 9 attack. That's bonkers. But the fact that it is a 9/1. So literally anything can kill it. A 1/1 can kill it. A ping can kill it. Anything can kill it. A backstab can kill it. I don't think that this is going to be good enough to see play. Disguise Wanderer, I'm going to give a 2 out of 5 stars. Felfin Navigator. Felfin Navigator is a 4 mana 4/4 Murloc with a battle cry that reads, give your other Murlocs +1/+1. Pretty straightforward. Buff all your Murlocs. I think this is going to synergize well with the Paladin package and the 1 mana 2/1 that summons 2 other Murlocs when it wakes up on 3. So I think that this is going to be pretty strong with that. But on its own, 4/4, pretty decent. Middle of the road card, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 stars. So this card people are actually sleeping on. I think that this is really strong actually. 5 mana for a 3/3 with a battle cry that reads, deal 3 damage to a minion and all other of the same minion type. So you're playing this against Zoo, deal 3 damage to all your demons. You're playing this against Shaman, deal 3 damage to all your Murlocs, to all your totems. Play this against a priest, deal 3 damage to all the dragons. The fact that it pretty much targets only those minions and it doesn't affect your board unless you have same minion type, which you could play around that. But I think Waste Warden is actually very strong removal, and I think that it's deserving of a 4-star rating. So I'm gonna give this Waste Warden a 4 out of 5 stars. The Dragon Maw Sky Stalker. So this card is comparable to Cairn Bloodhoof. It has 5/6 up front instead of 4/5, and then the residual minion is a 3/4 instead of a 4/5. So you're kind of taking more stats up front. Second half, you're taking away that 1/1 stat line. So Dragon Maw Sky Stalker, just another decent dragon that you can play. Value oriented, gets has a 3/4 left over, so that can be used to trade, or just if you want to keep aggressive push going, then you could just kind of use this chip early. They clear it, you still have something to use, chip with that, and it's going to be pretty decent. So Dragon Ball Sky Stalker, I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Scavenging Shavara is a 6 mana 6/3 minion with an effect that reads battle cry, deals 6 damage, randomly split among all other minions. This card is okay. I mean, you could target it can hit your own minions. It's not as good as the Demon Hunter version that's an end of turn effect and has better stats for 1 more cost, but this is neutral, so I'm guessing they were trying to make a neutral version of that card as well, but I don't think that this does the job. Scavenging Shavara, a 2 out of 5 stars. True Vanguard is a 7 mana 4/10 taunt, and is also a neutral minion that reads, whenever this takes damage, gain +2 attack. So on its base value, it is a 4/10, and whenever it takes damage, you gain +2 attack. This card can actually be comboed with the spell for Warrior. Imagine if this gets hit 8 times, +16 damage. So it's a 22 minion. Granted, not sure if this thing will survive 1 or 2 turns, but if this thing survives 1 turn and you combo it with that card, it can get pretty damn close to an OTK. So I would definitely watch out for this card. Might be this not really the sleeper card of the set, but one of the cards to look out for. I'm going to give Bone Shooter Vanguard 3.5 out of 5 stars. Rusted Raider is a 5 mana 1/8 with taunt that reads Rush, Battle Cry, gain +4 attack this turn. So Militia Commander is the card that's compared to this, but this is a neutral card, so you can play it in any deck regardless of the class. So I think that this thing has a lot of things going on. It's an initial big removal, but then after that you still have a pretty sizable taunt left over. The fact that the base stat is 1 instead of 2 is kind of like worrisome, because 1 attack doesn't do much to mid-range to bigger minions, so I think that's the real big downfall of Raider here. But pretty good removal for the initial attack, and still a taunt left over, so I think it's decent. I'm gonna give Rust Steed Raider a 2 out of 5 stars. Bone True Brawler is a 2 mana 2/3 minion with taunt, another vanilla minion here, with the effect that reads whenever this takes damage, gain +2 attack. So if you buff this enough and it takes multiple instances of damage, which I think they're also pushing another enrage kind of archetype on Warrior again. This thing is okay. It's nothing crazy. I mean, if it gets one attack off on a low stat minion, it'll turn into like a 4/4/2, 4/1 possibly. But I just don't think it goes competitive. I don't see it. I'm gonna give Bone Churro Brawler a 2 out of 5 stars. So this card is very interesting. I was thinking about Tar Creeper, but Tar Creeper was way better, because even if Tar Creeper was damaged, it still had that 3 attack threshold on your opponent's turn. So I think that this card is interesting, but I don't know if it makes the cut. Maybe in Priest, because you could heal it. So even though your opponent kind of damages it, you can heal it. And it also has that +2 attack if it's full health on your turn as well. So in that regard, it's better than Tar Creeper, and it has higher health. But we'll see. We'll see. Overconfident Orc, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Guardian Og Merchant. So Guardian Og Merchant is a 1 mana 2/1 that reads Battlecry, deal 1 damage to a minion, give it Divine Shield. So Divine Shield is very, very strong. I just think about this in a warrior build with Frothing Berserker. You buff the Frothing Berserker and you give it Divine Shield, making it even more annoying to remove. So I think that this card is going to be very strong. People are going to run this for sure in warrior decks, and probably exclusively warrior decks, because I feel like that's they take advantage of damaged minions the most. And you could probably run this as a 2-of and it'll still be fine. I give Og, and this also protects your minions from being to that turn where they would be able to copy it with the 3 mana Bloodsworn Mercenary. So I think that Og Merchant is very strong. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 stars. And I think that is it. Whew, that was something, man. Now the fun part is finding out what works best with what. So we'll keep an eye out. I'm definitely going to be putting out a lot of videos as far as decks experiments, and just testing out new decks, new archetypes that are coming out, and also just messing around with different classes, see what works best, what meshes best, what feels best to me. Make sure to follow us on Twitch at El Platano Loco, as well as our Twitter and Instagram. Make sure to check us out. Thank you again. Also, make sure to leave your comments in the comment section below. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.